Good ethical morning. My name is KarQ. Welcome to the OverwatchUniversity support, where we basically answer questions that are the most upvoted on this subreddit. Here we go. First question, very relevant. Why is Ana not using the OWCS, the Overwatch Championship Series? I was watching the OWCS, that was the major World Championship Series that happened in Stockholm, Sweden for DreamHack this past weekend. And I saw that Brig and Juno was on every support backline, and I watched, and Mauga was often the tank of choice. So I'm just curious why Ana isn't used. Anti-nade negates all of Mauga's heals and makes Orbital Ray not as effective. Is it just simply because Brig is important for keeping Juno alive, or to prevent the enemy team from overwhelming with the likes of Tracer or Genji? That is a great question. But first, she was used actually, but in only very specific situations. You'll see Ana often paired with Brig in the Winston comps on maps like Ilios Well or Lighthouse, where controlling the high ground matters more than like turtling on point with Mauga. But beyond that, she doesn't fit too well against the Mauga comp. Like sure, you'd think it'd be easy to counter Mauga with a well-placed anti-nade like you said, but top tier teams won't let that happen so easily. They'll probably pressure Ana, forcing her to use that nade defensively just to stay alive. Meanwhile, the meta comp of like Reaper, Echo, and Juno with that crazy speed boost makes it nearly impossible for Ana to keep up. She'll actually just get run over before her utility in that nade can really shine. It's not that Ana's bad, she's still amazing, especially in ranked and regular play, but Juno just fits the current high-level meta better. Juno also brings a team-wide AoE ultimate that synergizes perfectly with Mauga's Brawl playstyle and Cage ability, and Brig is non-negotiable here because she keeps Juno safe and provides repair packs with the Echo in the sky. Now in ranked play, Ana plus Juno can work, like without the Brig, and they work just fine together, right? Ranked isn't OWCS, it's messy, full of mistakes, and you don't need the perfect ult layering or the Brig babysitting the Juno when the enemy team isn't probably playing anything threatening half the time for that Juno. So while Ana struggles to shine at the highest level of this recent competition, she's still a fantastic pick for the average ladder grind. Is Winston bubble mostly for blocking line of sight? I'm trying to learn Winston for the first time. I understand the concept of using bubble to block out angles and protect my team by disrupting enemy LOS. I'm wondering if this is the primary use of bubble rather than to use it more specifically as a 1v1 tool to mitigate damage. Obviously it can be used for that, but in my head it sort of feels like throwing to use a bubble for a 1v1, which may not even result in an elimination. Ideally I would use cover and not burn the bubble, but if I get to the point where I need to use bubble to not die, and then even with bubble it's a pretty even matchup, am I throwing? It feels like yeah, but I'm new to Winston and I don't really know if my thinking is correct. Alternatively, I could just jump out instead of using my bubble to try and secure the kill, which seems like a good play. But yeah, basically, I'm just wondering if using the bubble to engage in a 1v1 is throwing most of the time. No, it's not throwing, but there's a lot of nuance to the Winston bubble. Winston's bubble is so flexible because of its size, its shape, and its reasonable health pool. So let's rapid fire some use cases here. Number one, self-protection, right? You jump into the fight, drop the bubble to block the enemy cooldowns like on a sleep dart, mitigate the damage, bubble dance, fine and dandy. Number two, breaking line of sight. It's perfect for denying healing. Like Moira, Ana, Baptiste, and KarQ can't heal through the bubble, and they can break line of sight of like a diva bomb in the air. Number three, team protection. Like use it to shield a teammate who's under pressure, or if they're using an ultimate like a cast high noon, or you can use it to protect your backline supports. The key is to actually read the fight and knowing when to use it for the line of sight denial, the damage mitigation, or to create space for your team. If you master that, you'll master Winston, or one aspect of Winston. He's one of the harder tanks to actually play, despite his no aim mechanics. Primal is a really hard mechanical ability, but that's a story for a different day. Just don't burn your bubble where you don't need to, because that shit is one of his best tools. Why does Sombra not counter Widow anymore? I've recently been seeing people say that Widow is horrible right now because of Sombra nerfs, which I do understand. No one likes... Wait, what? Widow is horrible because of Sombra nerfs? Wait, what don't you mean Widow is great because of the Sombra nerfs? Which I do understand. No one likes getting domed in the head the second they hit point. However, the only times I've struggled to play Sombra into Widow was when they had a Pocket of Mercy with them. When they're alone, they always tend to struggle when attempting to escape or kill me. I'm not sure whether it's because I'm gold on console and I don't know how people act in high rank, so this is why I'm asking. Well, when you can close the gap, like she cannot escape or kill you if you can close the gap on her. But that's the thing, you're in gold and you're probably able to do that. So in high ranks, or I guess in general, like the biggest reason why Sombra doesn't counter Widow anymore is the nerf to her stealth. It used to be a permanent stealth, which meant she could sneak around the map undetected and path straight to the Widow and then maybe translocate to high ground if needed. Once Widow's like just scoped in, Sombra could just easily pounce and then hit her with the virus, hack her, clip her down, and all that fun stuff. But now, because stealth is on a timer, only 5 seconds. This forces Sombra to constantly have to repath and stay out of the Widow sightlines or even enemy sightlines, which is a lot harder to do the higher you climb because people will fish you out and sniff you out. Like if you get spotted as you're pathing to Widow specifically, like the Sombra's plan is entirely ruined, right? Like sure, Sombra can still delete Widow like if you close the gap on her, but the challenge is actually getting to her. It takes more time, more finesse to path to her, and every second you waste spent trying to reach the Widow, it gives Widow more time and opportunities to get that game-changing pick, or 2 or 3, or the Widow just kills all 5 and it's GG's. So while Sombra can still counter Widow in theory, the execution is much less reliable now, making her less effective overall in that role compared to before. That's all. And that's why people say she's not a counter to Widow anymore. How to get more value out of Lifeweaver. I know that despite buffs, Lifeweaver isn't exactly meta, but I really enjoy playing him. It's something about sending the Lotuses to faraway allies that scratches my brain just right. In comp, I kind of feel like he just exists. You know, he heals, he pulls from time to time, damage is pretty lackluster. I guess this is why he isn't a top pick at the moment, but there are still people out there doing feelers with him even at high levels of play. So what are areas to focus on to make him perform better? Focus on damaging with the needles, better use of his yoink to save allies, clever positioning with pedal. I guess my question is, what key parts of his kit can make him excel? I mean, all of these, but these are all situational and depend which one adds more value at a certain time. So instead of answering these individually, the easy answer to get more value out of Lifeweaver in his current state and his design is to actually only play him in situations where he would excel at, instead of forcing him into every matchup, every suboptimal comp, or, you know, forcing him against tough matchups. Let's start with some favorable enemy tank matchups. Like Lifeweaver actually does pretty well against Orisa, Rhine, and even Mauga in some cases. Like these brawly, any sort of brawly ground-based tanks are prime targets for Lifeweaver's kit. For example, you know, his Thorns are fantastic for shield breaking with its consistent DPS, especially when the enemy is, you know, stuck on the horizontal plane, the ground. While the Thorns are not great against fast-moving targets because of their slow projectile size, they're actually a menace against these heroes. And shields, I think his shield pressure is like 130 DPS, and if he's just holding, the Rhine's holding the shield, you apply crazy DPS there. It might be the highest amongst all supports, believe it or not. Now his life grip and his pedal platform also counter these specific 3 tanks, big plays and their big ultimates, right? Orisa pops her ult, yeah, just lift her up. Mauga cages a teammate, grip him out. Rhine lands a charge on someone, no he didn't. If he lands a shatter, grip the person or platform people up, and you can nullify it. And you can literally throw the Tree of Life down at any of these situations as well to block line of sight, which adds an extra layer of disruption. And Tree of Life is a pretty damn good ultimate right now, giving lots of overhealth, and people can stay and receive that overhealth and keep it over time as well. Now those are your, you know, offensive matchups and when you would situationally pick them. But now for your team specifically, I would say Lifeweaver plays best in Sigma poke comps right now, because Lifeweaver is a naturally pokey hero. If he's not healing, he's spamming those Thorns in a long range. At a long range, right? It's an AoE poke, no damage fall off. Again, the DPS hits around 130, which melts shields. And if the enemy team runs a Sigma poke on Circuit Royale, I've seen it. I've seen the BAP Lifeweaver, I played it with it, and it's actually pretty damn good. So again, pairing him with like a poke heavy comp lets him lean into the strength while still providing utility and sustain for the team. And then if the enemy team again runs Sigma, you can actually like tree or platform the enemy Sig ultimate, grip them out of the sky, like it's great. So in short, you pick them when the enemy team comp is grounded and your team can play a poke style. And that's where Lifeweaver thrives, giving you great value out of his kit and making the most out of it. Can you really main anything? I'm fairly new to the game, please no flame, but I'm confused on this constantly recommended whole idea of never playing anything but 1 or 2 heroes, save for the apparently universal good ones like Doom, Ball, Mercy, Lucio, and Widow. Universally good ones, okay. Because you can get hard and mechanically counterpicked by the enemy team. You can have a map which is just really bad for your hero. The other team can progressively adapt to you. The list goes on. I mean, you could also adapt to the enemy team despite being counterpicked and adapt to the counterpick, but let's move on. Like this game has elements of a MOBA like Dota, where in a captain's draft, you would weigh the advantages of disadvantages of a lineup against an enemy. But here you can constantly change. It's much more fluid and dynamic. So why would you reduce yourself to just one thing? The other team probably isn't. I love to play Zen, but if they have a really good Tracer, I'm not going to try to 1v1 an experienced Tracer who is targeting me just repeatedly because I main Zen. So what's the deal? I mean, you can certainly win this matchup. How do you know the Tracer is experienced until you at least try the 1v1? If she's absolutely smoking you and you can't hit her a single time, how do you get better at that? By actually challenging yourself to duel that Tracer. You may lose some games, but You can certainly main one hero if you want, but the reason why people recommend maining 1 or 2 heroes is because, like, if this is not working out for you and you don't want to do this matchup, having a second choice to main that does something like a little bit different than your original pick, a different archetype, a different style, can really save you if your goal is to like just win that specific game. But if your goal is to get better at that specific hero, like playing them in unfavorable matchups is actually really good practice, despite what people say. So in short, yes, of course you can truly main anything in Overwatch, but there is nuance to it, right? Not every hero is universally good. The ones you listed there are a lot more situational and niche than you think. I personally think the best heroes to main or have as a secondary pick are what I call generalist heroes, where you can slot them into most compositions and matchups and still generate a good solid baseline of value regardless of your team or enemies or the enemy team's compositions. Those heroes are like Diva, Tracer, Ana, KarQ. You'd say you don't want a 1v1 and you main Zen, but you can actually just one-trick Zen and climb just fine. Every hero has been one-trick to GM top 500, and sticking to one hero and learning to adapt to bad situations can still net you wins, right? When people think it's a bad matchup, they think you suddenly it's unwinnable. They think it's a 0% win rate if you play in a countered matchup, but that's just literally not true. Let's just say a standard baseline of a team 50-50, right? And if you play an unfavorable matchup, it may drop to like 40-60. 40% chance to win is bad objectively. Like if you have a 40% win rate across your hero across 1,000 games, that is pretty bad. But is 40% zero? No, across 1,000 games, you still won 400 of them. You didn't win 0 of them. When people say it's a 0% win rate because it's countered, blah, 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 they're obviously over exaggerating. It's going to be an uphill battle for sure. But I mean, if people can one trick like quote unquote bad heroes and bad matchups like Ryan, we wouldn't see LH Cloudy be like rank 1 Reinhardt because he plays them in like literally every single bad situation. Maybe not as much anymore, but the point stands. You know what I mean? As a player who was downloaded a few days ago, I have 50 losses and 10 wins in quick play. Is this normal? I don't know if it's just me specifically throwing most of the game or if the matchmaking favors more experienced players, but it seems like most of the players on my team usually have a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 KD ratio at best, but the enemy team is filled with people getting dozens of kills while only dying a few times. Almost all the time, I can't get better than a 1-to-1 KD ratio, so is this normal? And if it's my fault, how can I try to get better? Well, if your team isn't doing so hot, that's probably because you're not doing so hot and you're kind of like not performing poorly and not, you know, doing your role very well, which makes it harder for your team to have that 2-to-1 ratio that you see the enemy team have because you're kind of bringing them down. And I'm not saying that to flame you. It is perfectly normal to have lots of losses and only 10 wins right now. You're new to the game, and that is fine. Overwatch has an incredibly large and steep learning curve, especially because you just downloaded the game, right? So in theory, matchmaking should pair you with other new players, but if you're playing with any friends, I don't know if you specified that, who are experienced, that's a different story because you will get matched against players closer to your friends' skill levels, and that will be very, very tough. You can play against AI or something or bots at first because honestly, Overwatch isn't easy. Like people have played this game for 8+ years now, and it just started with 21 heroes back then with a lot less maps, and people would learn the game piece by piece as new content was added over time. You, on the other hand, are jumping in with like 42 heroes now, tons of new maps, new game modes like Flashpoint, Push, Clash, all these mechanics to learn at once. It's a lot to take in, right? So my advice is to take it one step at a time. Don't worry about the losses. Pick a role you enjoy. Focus on 1 or 2 heroes in that role, which minimizes the variance and lets you concentrate on learning the game flow, the objective, ult economy, health pack locations, and your hero's abilities. And over time, you'll improve, and those win-loss stats will normalize over time. Just focus on having fun and not burning out. Thoughts on Hazard? I know he's brand new in the test play environment, but what does everybody think of him? Blah, 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 blah. He overall seems pretty fun. What are your guys' thoughts? I'm just going to short this because I have a lot to say about Hazard. I just uploaded a video on this channel that you're watching, deep diving into this. So if you can check that out if you want my full breakdown and opinion, but here's the shorter version of my opinion on Hazard. Very fun. Versatility in combos, being able to use them offensively or defensively is super satisfying. But that said, fun doesn't always equal competitively viable, and I think the high-level community will figure this out pretty quickly. Hazard is incredibly feast or famine. If he doesn't secure a kill with his leap and his combos, he's essentially a sitting duck because his escape tool and damage mitigation isn't actually that reliable. When it comes to comp synergy, I think high-level players tend to stick to established archetypes like dive, brawl, poke. And Hazard leans closest to dive, but he actually doesn't do dive better than traditional dive tanks like Winston, Ball, or Doomfist. Winston has his bubble and his Primal Rage for survivability. Ball's got, insane mobility with his grapple. Over 1,000 effective HP, can boop enemies and then roll away and disengage. Doom has multiple movement abilities and his panic button ultimate. In comparison, Hazard's block, his power spike, is actually a huge vulnerability at high elo. Like, it's an easy target for anti-sleep, nades, hacks, hooks, stuns. And his leap, it's actually much shorter range than his other dive counterparts, and he can't, you can actually just get hit by anything. Any good player can predict this leap. You can sort of change your direction mid-air, but it's not as fast and fluid as other heroes, and you'll just actually get eaten alive by certain cooldowns. So he's really limited in terms of getting in and out of fights safely if he doesn't actually secure any kills for people out of position. So honestly, Hazard feels more suited for a 6v6 in my a 6v6 environment, in my opinion. That's my big thought. You could play actually more as an off-tank bruiser style. He punishes poor positioning in the chaos of the 6v6 environment, while another tank that he's paired with can offset his weaknesses. But in a 5v5 as the only tank, Hazard's hard engage tools don't pack the same punch as the other hard dive engage tools that the other tanks have. His playstyle, which is like the staging, the leaping, setting up the wall boops, kind of takes a little too long, which kind of leaves his team stranded during critical moments. His kit feels more like it's designed to finish people off rather than to set up and dominate initial engagements like the other tanks can. In short, he's fun to play, but he's got clear weaknesses that make him really hard to fit into high-level 5v5. But luckily, 6v6 test modes are coming out the same season Hazard's coming out, so we can actually try him in the modern 6v6 environment pretty damn soon as well. But if it were up to me and he doesn't get changed by his release in a few weeks, I probably would not touch him in ranked. Play him in quick play to mess around and do some fun, cool combos or some clips, but I would not play with him in ranked right now. Also, I should say with my opinion is that I could be totally wrong, and I'm okay to accept that I'm wrong, but this is just my initial hunch during this 3-day playtest. Won't really know. Maybe some god gamers can really pop off with it, but if you're gonna try to punish people's positioning, I think Roadhog just does a better job. Just hook them and they're actually probably dead, versus Hazard's maybe his combo can finish a 200 HP hero off if they don't get any peel, and if you don't finish it off, you're in a weird spot where you're oh shit, I got a power block, but then you're also really vulnerable. You know what I mean? Anyways, I digress. That's my thoughts on Hazard. How to play with Doom as support. I feel like I have a curse with Doomfist players. 95% of my games, I'm in the same team as a Doom one trick. My games are losses. I feel like the ones who get in the enemy team are way better than the ones who get an enemy team. What? I feel like the ones who get in the enemy team are way better than the ones who get an enemy team. My friend, you're going to have to write your Reddit posts in a word processing document before you post these. But that's probably a bias, and I'm not here to complain, but that's not the point of this post. My question is, how am I supposed to play as support when Doom is my tank? I don't want to dive with them because they will do their own thing without caring about their teammates, and I eventually end up dying because I can't get back. But I can't play from too far from them because I feel like they eventually get out of LOS and I can't heal them afterwards, which ends up with them dying a lot. I feel like most of the time Doom players just feeding, even if they aren't. I'm on a loss streak right now. Went from plat 3 to gold 2 this week. Here's a code, etc, etc. I played Brig there because they're tank in my last game. So to play Doom with support, a lot of players think you're supposed to follow the Doomfist wherever he goes, but that's actually not the case. The onus or the responsibility lies with the Doomfist player themselves, and to use their cooldowns wisely, draw attention, and then retreat back into the line of sight for healing without the Doom overcommitting or dying, especially if they don't have their ultimate ready, which is a nice, meteor strike, oh shit button, and it heals, as he goes up in the air. So your job as a support is to help them when they're actually back in your range. Throw a Brig pack, land a quick shot or two as Ana, send a little burst of healing if possible with your hero. If you're on KarQ specifically, whether to teleport in with Suzu kind of depends on the situation and the play being made. It's not always the right move. More often than not, ends up not being the right move because the Doom isn't smart enough to make the right play on an average elo. But here's the key. If the Doom is off in Narnia, diving in solo, it's actually not your job to chase him and give up your position. Good Doomfist players know how to rotate to the health packs and survive long enough to make it back to their team's line of sight for support. So stick to helping the Doom player when they're in line of sight and don't put yourself at risk overextending. Doom survival is as much about their gameplay as it is about your healing. How to fight Venture as a tank. I'm not actually sure what to do. I play Ryan, Orisa, Zarya. Doesn't matter though, because it feels like this character is the second coming of DPS Doom and I never learned how to handle that either. The amount of damage I do is not enough to instant kill them. Even if I land my javelin on them and several subsequent shots, it's not enough. Hammer swings, may as well be swatting them with the Feather Duster. Max charge damage with Zarya is good, but not good enough. Every time they're low, they burrow underground where they're invincible. From there, I have two choices. One, turn around and watch them. them. Bad idea, because the other 4 people are going to utterly demolish me. 2, just let them go back there, at which point they'll spring out of ground like some kind of demonic gerbil and then instantly drill away to safety, disrupting the entire backline, maybe even getting a pick and escaping scot-free with seemingly no way to punish them whatsoever. Again, even if I land a javelin on them after they resurface, that's basically just giving them a more escape mobility because it pushes them away from us through the air, and I can't rely on DPS to kill Venture either. I'm hard stuck plat where everyone's allergic to using voice comms and has no idea how to fight this character, so it has to be me somehow, or I need to get better teammates, which fat chance. It seems impossible to kill Venture. How can I do it? The first thing to understand is that your job isn't to always solo kill the Venture, or any hero really for that matter. While it's possible in some matchups, Venture specifically is designed to be tough to kill. They have a high HP pool, self-healing or self-sustain with the abilities because you get that shield HP, right? And then the burrow mechanic, which makes them invulnerable. Your goal isn't necessarily to eliminate them, but to pressure them effectively. When you have cooldowns that can impact Venture, use them to disrupt their value. For example, you said landing a javelin, that's good. Even if it doesn't stun by it connecting to the wall, it still knocks them back, right? And this forces Venture out of effective range, and it minimizes their ability to deal the primary fire damage because it has a short range before it explodes, and it doesn't put them in range to drill dash your team. So even without a kill, you're doing your job by denying them opportunities to thrive in close combat. You're a tank player. While tank does have a lot of lethality, a lot of them are incredibly strong, and and a lot of them can solo kill heroes. As a tank, your larger overarching role in this game is to draw attention, draw aggro, draw threat. By applying pressure, kills are a bonus and the best case scenario, but you need to focus on being a presence that disrupts the enemy team's plans, whether that is, again, by pressuring the squishier heroes out of position or forcing that Venture to play less aggressively. The key is to manage Venture's value by keeping them away from the fight's core, not necessarily by securing the elimination yourself. So you have to get out of the mindset that I need to kill X hero, but this is a team game. Make it easier for Venture to not shit on your DPS heroes so that they can stand there and shoot the rest of the enemy team as well. Anyways, that's it for this week's questions. Thanks for listening to me.